in the chat room.
Hello, Richard in the chat room. Not you can hear me.
Yes, I think. Well, it's flashing up blue. Apparently, last week the audio there was no audio on the YouTube.
No, right.
Google Hangouts didn't record the audio. Good job I recorded it properly with the podcast. Right, come on, Jason. Where are you? Richard, can you hear us? I think it's flashing away like it is streaming. So. It won't let me answer.
Yeah, it's the first time I've ever seen that message coming up on my Skype client on the phone. Usually I can.
It's come up on mine, yeah. See if you can call me.
If it's anything like mine, it was saying I can't.
It's come up on modern Skype. You know, the preview. It says you may not be able to join this call because you've got an old version of Skype or using an unsupported device. That's the beta version of the preview app.
Yeah, it's doing. I'm getting that message.
Go. I can.
That message.
I'm just going to answer Jason.
Yeah.
Right, well, I was speaking to him then, okay. Let's see if we can add him back in now. No. So how do I add him to a group call? I can't. I can't. Let's say initiate the call with him.
But normally, if he calls the group, it would work. But if you can't call the group, which I couldn't do, on.
Let's see if I can. There's another way because I can't add when he rings. I can't add him to the call. He says using the new version. That's really strange. That maybe I'll just try dropping the call completely and recalling all of you.
Yeah, I think that might be a good idea.
Yeah, let's do that.
Right, let's do that. Right.
Been just a bad fault with Skype.
A fault with Skype? How very dare you?
I fancy suggesting that. Right. Well, that's all three of us and the Skype recording machine, and everything seems working. So I better get on with it. I'm just going to send a link out. Let's send that out from tweeting.
See if I can get the chat room open.
I failed miserably on that at the moment.
See if it works with my ad blocker on.
Well,
I'm just going to drop off the call a sec. I'll be back in a minute.
Okay.
Oh no!
Don't drop the Skype call. Just mute your mic or something.
That's it. It's gone.
Okay. Well, we'll get Gary back in a sec. So Jason, good evening.
Good evening.
Yes,
I'm
that a bit
using
of
an old version of Skype, apparently.
yeah, what a convoluted start to the show that was. Of course, the listeners won't know any of that, but yeah, we were using Skype then, and all our Skypes, apart from mine, were saying you're using an old version, and I'm using the latest version. We're all using the latest version. But
Yes, yeah, I'm using the one that was updated. I think it was yesterday.
Yeah, that's the one I'm using.
Yeah.
And the preview version on my Surface was also coming up saying about I wasn't able to join it as well. So I thought that is the newest version possible. So, so Gary is on the call. He's just sorting something out. We'll be back with us in a second. So yeah, we've got lots to talk about tonight. Hello to everybody in the chat room.
I'm back.
Gary's back, and Richard in chat room saying, "Imagining Jason is trying to tie the cans together with extra special string for his village."
That's what I just had. That's what I had to just rush off and do. I just heard a loud bang from the hallway, so I wonder what was going on. But someone had just dropped something down 3 flights of stairs.
So yeah, it wasn't your router exploding.
No,
Yeah.
no.
Well, I bet that object travelled down your stairs faster than my broadband.
Yes, the Nottinghamshire carrier pigeon service is being brought back into.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dear.
I spent an hour my Sunday afternoon leaflet dropping the village, trying to. They're doing a Superfast Northamptonshire run, kind of part of the Broadband Delivery UK, doing a survey to try and gauge which villages that haven't been announced yet kind of have the most demand. So it's like trying to get everybody to complete the survey.
Yeah, and do you realise we do a weekly podcast?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because I mean, the risk is that the government have now announced that they're not going to fulfil the last 5% and the Broadband Delivery UK scheme. They're going to switch to a universal service obligation, which is a bit like the telephone line. You know, you can build a house and you pay some of the cost, but BT have to provide a telephone line to it. Well, they want to make fibre broadband the same, but like I say, they're doing that for the last 5%. So 95% of the country have been kind of covered by the commercial or the government paying, and the last 5% is going to be down to people like myself to pay, which I'm not too impressed about.
It is ridiculous, isn't it? In the 21st century, living in countries in like South Korea who sort of get the bare minimum of 100 meg, and they're in gigabits, aren't they? And yeah, we still can't get 1 meg to some places in leafy southern England.
Yes,
it's not exactly the Highlands you live in, is it?
That's it. No, I mean, I can certainly understand. You know, there are some houses that are just not economically viable for the government to subsidise. But I think they should at least go for 100% street cabinet coverage before looking to get people to fund it themselves. But yeah, we shall see. I mean, don't they know I'm a Windows insider? I've got new builds to download.
Yeah, and imagine your broadband's been hitting the. I mean, how long does it take then to get a new Windows 10 build?
Well, they've done something to our exchange. So it used to be that our broadband synchronized in kind of fixed 512 megabit increments. That it can now sync at whatever it can sync at. So we've got a slight speed boost. I think it's about 4.5 now, up from 3. But even so, I mean, it can take a good 2-3 hours to download a 4 gigabyte build. And of course, it's not just one PC. You know, I'm now doing my Surface and our desktop PC. I've not really seen. There's no way to know whether or not this, share builds or share updates between local PCs really works.
I've never seen that work.
No, it certainly doesn't feel like it does. So it's frustrating. So it's always good for me if I'm on a late shift at work and they announce a new build, because then I can download it over over the speedy connection there. But yeah, if it's at home, it's certainly quite a while, and it is frustrating.
Yeah, and I know it's us moaning about downloads of new builds and things, but it isn't really that. That's not the issue, is it? The issue is that most modern services depend on some fast broadband connection, whether it's media streaming, iPlayer, and as services go online only, like BBC Three, and things like that. They're all dependent on having high speed connections. And there was a time when the web was optimized for low narrow bandwidth phone line. And you optimize your website for the minimum size and things like that. But now, these JavaScript frameworks are massive, aren't they? So some of these websites are really big, and Yeah, and as you've got kids growing up wanting to stream as well, and YouTube, watching whatever YouTubers, as my son likes to call them, you know, it all takes up bandwidth, and you need it, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
And
But
this business is affected, I guess, as well, and even, you know, than necessarily home consumers.
yeah, I mean, you know, like Gary, you know, I run my own business, so sometimes I you know, I want to work from home, and it's literally a case of getting the kids to switch off off their stream so that I can, you know, I can actually work. But yeah, it's ridiculous. But on the positive side, I've managed to turn off our central heating thanks to my 930, which is running very hot now.
So you've got the latest build, insider build, then, have you, on your 930?
Yes, absolutely. Because after declaring that I wasn't going to install insider builds onto my 930, obviously, yes, I've been lured to the dark side. Thanks, Ian.
Well, and I'm not. Which is what's really funny.
I'm not either. So
Yeah. So let's talk about it. So we've got 2 new builds, or 1 build for 2 platforms that were released, and we'll talk about the phone in a second. So let's start with the PC build. A bit of a slip up because this got released slightly early. So this is 14342, wasn't it?
Yeah.
What happened with this then?
I'll let Gary take that one.
I don't really know. What did happen to this one? Ian?
Well, no one really knows. But all we know is that it got released early, didn't it? Because it started being distributed to people before they'd done the blog post. In fact, before Gabe knew about it.
Yes. So Gabe was somewhat shocked when he found out people already had it.
Yeah. So I think just some of the automatic release mechanisms, or whether something was triggered and it went out, because it was really late, wasn't it? I think it was like early hours in the morning here.
Yeah,
it shouldn't Gabe shouldn't fall asleep leaning on that red button.
Because I think it was pretty late in the evening US time.
It was, it was incredibly late.
He shouldn't fall asleep at his desk.
So he fell asleep, led to this. So, but then the post did come out. So by the time we got up in the morning, I think it was Wednesday morning, wasn't it, that the build was available. So there was a few there's a few updates in this build, quite a few fixes as well. So let's
quite a few.
Let's talk about the new feature that the first thing you notice really is extensions in Microsoft Edge. We've got some new ones.
Yes, and also a new delivery method.
So tell me about the new delivery method.
So in the previous or the more recent insider build, since the extensions to Edge became available to us, you had to download, I think, each extension to a folder and then kind of install it. And each time there was a new build, it was a case of you know, having to do that again as obviously, you know, development moves along. But now with this build, which is, where are we? It's 14342. It's now actually delivered through the store, and even if the extension gets updated, it gets updated through the store, which I think is quite a nice way of doing it. So yeah, so it's certainly much easier. You know, you can now browse them through the store, just install them, and there's kind of, you haven't got these kind of hoops to jump through now to get each extension working. And we actually also got the first 2 ad blockers.
Yeah, so ad block plus.
Yeah, and I've got to say the addings through the extensions through the store seem to be working really well. I got all they installed, and I also got the website analyzer and Microsoft Translate, and also all of them. I got them all down through the store, and I think it works quite well, and it makes sense having it all in one location with the store. I think that's a good idea.
Yes, yeah, I think, like I said, I think it's a really neat way of doing it, because, you know, the store is a central place where we go to look for updates, and I think also having kind of, it can be a case that you launch the browser and then on other platforms, and then you kind of get prompted to install all these updates, whereas with this way it should be, you know, you just, as long as it's recently checked and downloaded the updates, that they'll just be there.
Yeah, I think that works quite well. So I like that. And actually, are getting quite into the extensions. I think they're quite good. I think they work quite well. But what my new favorite thing is in Microsoft Edge is swipe navigation's back.
Yay!
Yes. Oh gosh, I've really missed that. Didn't realise how much I'd missed that.
What was old is new again. That's really is good. I mean, I'm totally with you, Jason. I couldn't believe how much I'd used that. I started using it immediately without even realising it had come back.
I mean, For anybody that didn't realise, this was a Windows 8 feature, and in 8.1, where we had the modern browser, you could swipe back and swipe forward, and that was gone in Edge, and it's back.
Yeah. Of course, I can only use it on my tablet because I haven't upgraded my phone yet.
Yeah. And it's just in the phone. We'll talk about phone apps as well. But yeah, it in the tablet mode, especially on the Surface in tablet mode, it works really well. And the Encore and the links, and it's so much better than using the back button, which always... It's not always 100%, is it, the back button? I don't know what your experience is, especially on the little tablets. Sometimes the back button seems to take you back out of the browser itself.
Yes, yeah. I mean, for me, that's kind of, these are the sort of things that have really kind of tempted me to run the insider builds on my Surface Pro 3, because that feature, along with the full screen start menu without the all apps displaying unless you want it to, that's two big Windows 8.1 features for me that I was really missing.
Yeah, and I think I said this last week. There's a testament really to how well these Redstone builds are progressing. Is when I use my normal laptop at work, which is just on the release builds, I miss some of the features, and it's a little bit like there's a point somewhere, isn't it, where the new features become worth installing. And I mean, I'm not going to put the preview builds on my one at work. I'll wait till that's on the release. I've got enough other machines to test it on. But I say I'm now missing the features like the new Action Center and messaging, as you've put in the chat room. All these things, I'm starting to miss them in the release builds.
Yes, yeah. That it's the first time now having my 930 upgraded. It's the first time I've been able to really use the messaging everywhere, and it works really nice. I mean, it's a shame really we've kind of got this separation of the messaging and Skype, but hopefully that will return later on. But yeah, it works really well.
So that was the improvements in Edge. There are some improvements for Bash, which I'll let listeners take a look at in the release notes along with the blog post. The Skype UWP app, it said in the blog post that the app had been updated, and you could switch between accounts that had the dark mode theme, or the dark theme was supported. And I spent ages looking for how to enable that, but it turns out it wasn't updated, was it?
No, that's correct. No.
And in fact, I think it only got updated, I think it was on Friday, wasn't it? It was later in the week.
Yes, it was. Yeah, very much later in the week. Yeah, they certainly kept us waiting for that one.
Yeah, so not a huge amount of changes. It does look a little bit better. The dark mode has got a nice dark blue actually, which I quite like. So rather than it just being black in dark mode, it's actually got this really nice dark blue, which I thought looked quite nice. And you can switch accounts as well. So again, this app is slowly progressing, and it seems to be a lot more reliable in delivering the messages, which sounds bad for a messaging app, but that was one of the weaknesses in Skype, I think, delivering messages. But now that seems a lot better. And me and Jason were on Skype chat this morning, and it did seem to work. And amazingly, it only delivered notifications to the device I was actually using.
Blimey.
I know. So,
that's a big step forward.
Yeah, normally if I get a Skype chat, it came through to my Surface. My laptop had the desktop Skype app running, and it did see the messages on there. But normally all my devices are pinging away like mad. So my phone and my test phone and my Encore, they're all pinging away, but nothing had the message pinging apart from the Surface Pro 3. So I think that is a definite step in the right direction.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
So it had that. So there's a new build for the of Skype. There's a few visual changes. The user account control is now blue instead of yellow. I think it looks a little bit better. I think the new UI on the user account control dialog boxes look a little bit better. And updated Windows Ink workspace icon. Did anybody notice? Did you see the tweets about that? About what the icon reminds people of?
No, I didn't see that.
Yeah, well, have a look at the Windows Live Writer icon.
Ah,
It's very similar. It's like this is obviously a 2D outline type of view, so it's in the style of the other notification icons. But when you see it, it looks very much like a sort of a silhouetted Windows Live Writer icon. So other changes in this build, there is middle click dismiss for Action Center. I haven't got a mouse button with middle click with the preview build on, so I haven't tried that yet.
I have, and it works totally impossibly badly. No, I found because I've actually got a mouse wheel rather than a button.
Yeah.
I keep slipping as I press it and get rid of the ones I don't want to get rid of, because it sort of moved down a bit and actually then gets rid of the one below. so it's a good idea, but I could do some refinement. Well, I think I could do some refinement, not the system.
Oh, and the other thing was real-time web notifications in Edge as well. So I haven't seen anything on that. Apparently, Skype for Web's supposed to do it, and but I haven't seen that yet. But that's good that apps can push notifications through to Action Center website. So
yeah, it's good.
What else have we? Oh, there was some feedback improvements. The fixes are quite a long list. So, like I said, look at those over the on the release notes. The main ones are Project Centennial. That's the desktop converter apps now work, and the big one, I suppose, is the DRM fix.
Yes. So Netflix now works. So interesting enough, I hadn't realised this was a problem because I'd been away. But I came back and found that Now TV wasn't working on the previous builds. But actually, that was actually fixed in the one before this. But apparently, a few people were still having problems with that until this build as well. So I guess that's DRM related.
Interestingly, this you weren't here for when we talked about this, Gary, but Jason did find a fix for, say, Netflix. If it wasn't working on the previous build, you do an app reset through the settings app. But I had to do that again after I'd applied this build, so it must have reset that.
Reset
DRM somehow, yeah.
Put the DRM back to what it was before.
Yes, exactly, yeah. I don't know, did you have to do that, Jason?
Actually, I haven't tried since I updated. I just realised I haven't actually tried to play anything.
I think I had to do it anyway. I just on the
one thing I did notice is I had to re-log back into Now TV. So I don't know if that was something to do with it, but that seemed to happen at the same time as the build went in. So
that was what was happening with Netflix, and after you do reset, you got to re-log back in. And they fixed audio issues over HDMI and
and that definitely has improved a lot, because I was having real problems with my HDMI amp with it, and that's definitely, I don't get clicks and bangs when I start up anymore.
They polished the animation involving Cortana on the lock screen, which I couldn't see a difference. In fact, initially after applying the build, the Cortana on lock screen didn't show up.
Yeah, Cortana didn't show up at all, barely.
Yeah. And then the interest had disappeared as well in Cortana, and that seemed to be a UK English or non-US English issue. So you click into Cortana, it shows you your day and the weather and that kind of thing. All that disappeared, and then it reappeared sort of 2 days later.
Yeah, I think you said in the next day you had the lock screen back.
Yes.
And then kind of, I think the day or 2 days after that, the Cortana interest came back, which wasn't called out in the blog post as being an issue, but clearly it was some kind of server-side problem.
My Encore 8, which was set for US English, didn't have the problem, so it was definitely a region setting.
Yeah. I think what surprised me was the lack of feedback in the kind of feedback hub. There were some kind of feedback items discussing that, but not many getting upvoted, which is a shame, really. If that's kind of part of the insider's deal, isn't it? That you find issues and you kind of give the feedback so that it can be fixed. But clearly, they became aware of it and corrected it. And I think we talked about whether or not it would be a new build or whether or not it would be a server-side issue. But clearly, it was some kind of just server-side limitation.
Yeah,
probably because the build went out quicker than they expected.
Could be. It could well be. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
I wonder in some ways whether or not the build actually got released before it had gone past its flight kind of quality checks.
I think so, because they did call out in the blog post, didn't they, that some of the language packs weren't available, and then said they're now available.
Yeah.
So I think so.
But I think the most significant thing was the volume of fixes, and actually, while there were some issues, they're pretty low. Or from my perspective anyway, quite low impacting, but actually quite few.
Yeah, I mean, if we look at the non issues, there's a couple about the feedback hub localization. There was a semantic one, but that's been crossed out. QQ app, non-English keyboards with bash prompts, and some language issues. But really, that was it. There's not a huge amount of known issues in this build.
Mm,
And so
yeah.
far on my Surface, it's been better. And I tell you what, did we? I don't think Gary was around when we talked. Do you remember we talked about the power issue of my Surface kind of going to a deep sleep?
Yeah.
That seems to have fixed it. It's back to how it used to be.
Good.
So, although I did get the warm bag Surface, not hot, just warm. It hadn't turned the screen off for some reason, but it's only done that once, so I let it off.
Yeah, no, I have to say, I mean, since using this build on my Surface Pro 3, it's been really stable. It's been quite impressive. It kind of feels maybe a bit sooner than where we were this time last year, but it does feel these builds are starting to kind of get towards the kind of real polished versions.
Yeah, definitely are. Yeah, I think I had any issues earlier on with sort of the start screen. You know, you click on start and nothing would happen, and then it would pop up, and all that seems to have gone now. So I think it's working a lot better.
Yeah, I think this shows how well it's been working for me. The only slight complaint I've got is that with me having the start screen full screen, it sometimes there's a bit of a stutter in it opening. It's fine the kind of second and third time, but sometimes if it's not been open for a while, it does a slight delay on it, which is clearly some kind of performance issue. But if that's the only thing I can call out, then I think that's pretty good.
Yeah, definitely. I think this build is a nice build, and the last sort of 3 or 4, I think, apart from that DRM issue, which was an exception, really. I think the last 3 or 4 builds have been pretty good as well.
Yeah, and I mean, with that, I think we both kind of expected that actually the mobile build would follow. The equivalent build would follow quite quickly, but in fact, it was quite some delay.
Yeah, it's interesting that, because so far these builds for the last few weeks have been released in sync, or if they're not in sync, the different build numbers. So if the phone build was a week later, you know, have a appropriate build number increment and so on. So like I said, with the PC build came out on Tuesday, and I think most people are expecting the phone build Wednesday, and then it didn't come. So they think, it's Thursday, it didn't come. Friday didn't come, and it came out last night, quite late, wasn't it? Last night, well, late UK time. I think it was 11:30 UK time. It went out, so late evening or afternoon in the US. So yeah, we got this build, but the same build number, which is surprising given that it's 6 days later.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I was fully expecting a more recent build, and maybe with a slightly more recent desktop build, like they did once or twice before, I think. But no, it's the same build number. So that's what kind of leads me to think that the desktop build did sneak out much earlier than they were anticipating.
And wasn't Gabe all really quiet as well over that period?
Yes, yeah. I mean, it was like a period of 3 days before he said no new build today, I think it was.
Yeah. So this was build 14342, same build number, and more or less has the same features. They've expanded the number of devices that they're including inside a program. So if you've got a Lumia icon, you can have this. Also, the Blue Win HD LTE 150E.
That's a great name. That's a great name, isn't it?
It is, isn't it? And the Blue Win Junior 130R. Also supported now.
I think to be a Windows Phone licensee, you've got to be great at naming.
Yes, you got to come up with some really obscure naming. So this build, I'll talk about some of the features from the blog post, then we can talk about experiences, Jason. So this has the swipe navigations, just as the desktop build, which actually work really well on the phone, and better, I think, on the phone than they do on the PC. Also, app for websites. This is where sort of links between a website and an app can be maintained, but there's no apps that support that. So that was the same in the PC version as well. And the feedback hub had some improvements. So no major features, but a lot of fixes, including the DRM fix, which we talked about. Groove Music has some fixes. There's improved performance with the GPS coordinates while you're driving, which is pretty good. And of course, the big one for me and for many others is Tweetium now works as well.
Yes, yeah, that was the one I was definitely waiting for before making the jump.
Yeah, there's a lot of feature fixes in this one, so including Groove Music fixes as well.
So is it safe to run on a daily driver? That's the question.
Well, I'll tell you, before Jason answers that, I'll tell you what the known issues are then. So the known issues on the startup after you install that, where the Windows appears, or the phone appears to be frozen, and you get the Windows logo on there for a long time. But I didn't experience that. There is a workaround apparently, or you can just leave it.
Yeah, no, I didn't see that either.
Yeah, so I wonder if it's something to do with certain builds or SD cards or something like that. There's some issues with dual SIM devices, and you are recommended not to try rearranging your quick actions and action settings because spots can actually disappear and you can't get them back. So those were the main issues with it. So yes, so now Jason, answer the question. So is it good enough for a daily driver?
Well, I downloaded and installed the update this morning. I mean, as I said before, I wasn't necessarily planning on trying it, but I really wanted to try the messaging everywhere. And I felt, having used the builds on the desktop, that actually, as I just said, you know, these are kind of getting quite towards what I feel ready for release kind of thing. So I decided to try it on my 930, downloaded it, installed it. And so far, the actual build itself has been working okay. But since then, I've had some real problems in terms of the device getting really hot. I haven't been able to get it to charge properly all day, and I thought, well, I'll let it expire, you know, let the battery run down all the way and switch off, and then really struggled to get it to actually stay on and actually maintain a charge. So when I got home, I had it plugged in via USB in the car because the wireless charging just wasn't cutting it, and even then it was struggling to charge. So when I got home, I plugged it into the Nokia charger in the wall that came with it, and it has been charging, albeit very slowly, very, very hot. But this isn't the first time I've seen this. I've had this on the 930 before, even going to the RTM build of Windows 10 Mobile, and also on subsequent updates. And it's almost like in the background that there's still upgrade tasks going on. But normally I've solved that by doing a kind of either a hard reset where you hold down the power and the volume down button, or just by power cycling the device. But like I say, I couldn't get that to do it today. And even when I got a charge, if I took it off charge, the battery depleted pretty quickly, and it's been really hot all day. But just before we started recording, I went and checked it, and it got up to 78% charge. Bear in mind, this has been on charge since I got home, on and off, since about 4 o'clock, 4:15.
It's quite a long charge.
That's 5 hours. And yes, it's been off charge a few times, but the majority of this time it's been on charge. But I noticed it got to 78%, and it's now cool. So either that background process or whatever it was is now completed. But I shall see. So normally I just leave it by my bedside overnight and it's my alarm, but I'm not quite sure I'm going to risk that this evening. But I think what I might do is kind of plug it in next to my bed tonight, leave it plugged in, charging overnight, and then see how I get on with it tomorrow. But so it's going to be interesting because, like I say, it's not something I haven't experienced before, so I don't really want to label it on this particular build. So I will see how it goes. But actually, the time using it, it seems to be really good. I've just got the new store update, and a number of application updates. So yeah, so far it seems to be working well. That means I've been able to use the messaging everywhere, which seems to work really, really well. Works as advertised. I think I contacted you, so just double checking that the Skype preview app wasn't available on mobile yet, which it isn't. So I've lost the Skype integration temporarily. But yeah, so that's the only thing. I know Dan Rice on Twitter, he's also been having issues with his 1520 getting really hot and having the same issue where it's just not holding a charge. But I think one thing I did notice after the upgrade had finished, you get these kind of steps 1 of 8. And I'm pretty certain that the phone's starting to be usable after step 3 or 4. So I do wonder whether or not there's still optimization tasks running in the background.
Sounds like it, doesn't it? It sounds exactly like that.
I think it was pretty quick when it did it on mine, actually, because I remember thinking this is going to take ages, and then it expected to get stuck, and it didn't. But my 1520 is running the new build, and is completely cool, and is currently at 54% charge, and has not been plugged in since this morning. So there's no issues with battery on that, and like I said, it's
Mhm.
cool. But what you're describing was exactly what I had with previous when I had that problem and I actually rolled back. That's exactly what the same issue where it was just
Right.
hot. It wasn't.
Mm.
I don't think it was quite as bad as yours, but it was hot and the battery was not lasting as good as it had been. I rolled it back and it went back fine. But this 1520 is, let's say, it's totally cool and plenty of battery charge, but there's no SIM in it. Now, whether that makes a difference or not, I don't know. The other thing I did notice as well is the brightness setting doesn't do anything anymore. So you can toggle through low, medium, high, and it actually makes no difference. Actually, I just seen it dim then. I said that, but it's on high. Now, whether it's yeah,
Maybe it's doing automatic.
I think it might be doing automatic. But Josh Pollard tweeted me and said, "Is yours doing it?" And I said, "Yeah, mine's doing the same, but I've just seen it. It's now working." Isn't that strange? So, Josh, sorry, I told you misinformation. It was doing it. Oh, I think it's doing it automatic because I've just seen it change before my very eyes. So the button doesn't seem to do anything anyway. But no, apart from that, everything seems fine on there. Again, it's a bit like the desktop version. It's much better UI, isn't it, when you start using it, especially with notifications.
Yes, yeah,
The big
definitely.
pictures and things.
Yeah, I mean, now also with store update notifications coming in, which are really useful for people like us that like to keep an eye on things.
And we should mention the store as well. You said it'd been updated. It's got a new look.
Yes, yeah, it's much cleaner now, I think. And there should also be an update for desktop as well, but I don't think anybody can get it to install.
No, I
Certainly
can't get it to install now.
I've got over Twitter, it just says please try again. So hopefully they'll resolve that maybe overnight.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it's got
the
a
new
nice
store
new
does.
download sort of view. I think I tweeted the picture out before where it's got a different look to it.
Yes, yeah, and you can also you've got like a My Apps view where you can see things that have been updated, and you can also hide apps that you maybe don't want to see anymore that maybe downloaded as a trial or no longer used. But the bizarre thing is in Xbox One, and these are actual Xbox One games in there.
Yeah.
I think I've had the option to try and download Forza Motorsport 6, which I suspect would probably fail.
Oh, and you see recent activity as well.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a cleaner interface.
And when you go into an app now, it shows you what it's playable on. And
Yes.
it comes up PC, mobile, HoloLens, or Surface Hub. So you can check your apps are going to work on your Surface Hub and your HoloLens.
So that's basically what we were talking about last week, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it is, isn't it? Yeah.
And I think that's the right approach. I think rather because people really don't care if an app's universal. They want to know where it runs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. In fact, it's exactly what we asked for last week. Isn't
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah. The store looks better actually. I think that is it's a nice feature, and it'd be good if it gets that into the PC build. It just looks better. And like I said, the upgrade. It's because one thing you can do is set automatic updates on, but then you never know what's been updated. So now you can switch that back on and get a nice list, and you can see what's been installed. And, yeah, it's very good actually. So I really like this new phone build, but I won't be putting it on my 950 just yet. And it's not really anything with this build. It's just in case something goes wrong. It's a bit of a pain to reset all my authenticators and everything else. So.
Yeah, I think one of the big things that sold it for me is that I think we were talking about this on Twitter the other day, that I've been having some odd Bluetooth issues. So I was kind of getting to the point where I was thinking about doing a hard reset. So I figured, well, if the next build is good, then I might just try it and see if that improves my Bluetooth experience. And if it turns out to be a disaster, then I'll just reset it, which is what I was planning on doing anyway. So
actually,
it's time to live on the edge.
Yeah, and talking of Authenticator, I've seen this, but there's a beta version of the Microsoft Authenticator available. It only works on Redstone build, or it only works on my 1520. It doesn't work on the PC build. But I don't know if you use the Authenticator app for two-factor authentication, the Microsoft one.
Yeah.
So for anybody who doesn't know, this is where if you go into your Gmail or Outlook or whatever, and you put username, you put your password in it, and it asks for the code that's on your phone. Well, this new version, it just has a pop-up, and you say yes, and that's it. So you don't have to enter the code. It kind of syncs it up somehow. but I couldn't get that to install on my 950 XL anyway, which is the device I use it. So I'm still on the old version for now. But it does say on the download page, this is an internal build test, but I guess this is going to be available with the Redstone builds. So, one other thing as well we should mention on this build as well is the password sharing in Wi-Fi sense has been removed.
Yes.
Yes, yeah, because nobody uses it.
Yeah, and people moan about it.
because when your friends come around and say, "Can I have your Wi-Fi password?" and you say, "It's okay, I can just." Oh, you've got an iPhone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's much more secure, actually telling them the password.
Yes, I mean, it's a shame really in some ways that feature wasn't used. I mean, I think the fact it relies on it only works across Microsoft devices, whether or not there might be some Android Microsoft app that got released that made it work more widely, but it's certainly an interesting idea because in this modern age we do have friends and relatives that come around and they do want your Wi-Fi password, and I know a lot of Wi-Fi routers have guest networks, but if you're like me, you've got it switched off, because you don't want another 4 Wi-Fi networks being displayed in your house. So I keep it off, and then you kind of feel a bit it's a little bit embarrassing in some ways, British problems and all that, when people ask for your Wi-Fi and then you go, "Oh, let me just turn on the guest account for you."
Yeah, that's right.
And while it was very controversial, it didn't actually give out the password. It just enabled by, kind of an encrypted handshake almost, that they could then connect seamlessly into your Wi-Fi without you having to give them the details.
Yeah, especially when you've got that embarrassing password that you've set as your main Wi-Fi password. You don't have to give it out anymore.
Yeah. Yes.
But now you do
exactly. Again. Yes. So I think it certainly was an interesting idea. Unfortunately, it got panned on most blog sites about it being a massive security risk and how businesses wouldn't want it. Well, you could just turn it off, and you can certainly turn it off through group policy. So, but they're saying they're removing it because it's the high maintenance of the code compared to the usage. But I suspect it's probably just probably minimal usage, therefore not worth the controversy.
Yeah, I think so. Shame. It's a shame in many ways. I think they could have made that into a very useful tool if people had realised exactly what it was doing, rather than just reading it, just saying what they thought it was doing.
Yeah. And you could. I mean, it was really fine grained. Yes, you could just switch it on in terms of you wanted that feature active, but you did it per Wi-Fi network. So
yeah, and another useful feature potentially taken out by people not actually understanding what it does properly.
Yeah,
knee-jerk reactions.
Although I did like that many of the blog sites covered it as that Wi-Fi sense had been removed.
Yeah,
which is the case.
No, what blogs getting it wrong?
No.
So I was going to talk about screen mirroring next, but Richard said going to talk about the OneDrive app. So yes, Richard, we are. I'm just going to talk about the mirroring before we do that. Keep you on 10 talks for a little bit longer, Richard. One thing I noticed with this build, and Microsoft didn't mention it, but it definitely does work, is you can do PC to PC screen mirroring with the Connect app. So in the previous build, you could do this phone to PC. In fact, 950 mainly. I couldn't really always get it to work with 1520. So in Windows 10, in the Redstone builds, if you go into there, you see a PC Connect app if you've got hardware that supports it, like most tablets do, laptops. And then you could mirrorcast. So from my 950, I could mirrorcast the screen up to my Surface, and then you could see the screen on there, and of course it supports Continue and everything. In the previous builds, it only worked with the phones. In this current build, it works PC to PC. So you can get your Core 8 or Lynx tablet and project that to your Surface Pro 3 or a Surface Hub, I guess, potentially, or your big laptop or whatever, a desktop PC, and mirror that screen up there. And actually, it works quite well. As I said in the video, it worked 50% of the time when I did the video. I guess it's because it's early days, and it worked both ways. You could have the Surface Pro as the receiver or the transmitter, and I'm not sure what the actual use case is for it, but it is quite handy if you want to just show something. I mean, I can imagine if you've got maybe for doing presentations, you've got a laptop connected up to a projector, and maybe you've got a small tablet that you could then show off on the laptop or something like that. But yeah, it works anyway. So PC Miracast is sort of built into Windows now.
Yeah.
Now, the other app, a new app that was released and that came out today, I think Richard was talking about, was a new OneDrive app for Windows 10.
Yeah, this one's kind of been coming for a while, hasn't it? I think it's been leaked a few times on various websites, but I find it's available for us to try. And they are kind of pitching, aren't they, as a replacement for placeholders, because it allows you to view your entire kind of OneDrive catalog, which is kind of what the placeholders allowed you to do. Still need a connection, which you didn't necessarily need to do with the placeholders, or you did if you wanted to access that particular file. But yeah, it's certainly not really what everyone wanted.
Yeah, so I'm sure most people are aware of the full story, but a bit of background on it. So in Windows 8.1, I think Windows 8, you had OneDrive, and you had 3 options really, didn't you? Sync nothing, sync everything, or use placeholders. And a placeholder would be, so if you had, say, a Word document in your documents folder in OneDrive, you could go into Windows Explorer, you could see that, but it wasn't actually downloaded locally. It was just a placeholder. When you double clicked on it, it downloaded the file, and then you had a local copy of it. It worked great, and all of us understood it, and it worked fine. But Microsoft said it was confusing for some people. They didn't get the concept of placeholders, and it was scrapped in Windows 10. And in Windows 10, you just do it folder by folder or everything. And the worst thing is, if you've got a small device like the Link 7 with a little tiny hard drive in there, you have to be really careful which folders you sync, because, for example, my SkyDrive, it's still called SkyDrive, the SkyDrive folder, the Photos folder, is 27 gig or something like that. So you don't want to be trying to drag that down to my own Core 8 and filling the hard drive up. So how do you access these files if you want them? Well, previously the only way was to use the browser, but now you can use this app. Just like it's essentially the same app as the phone, isn't it? It's the same build and everything.
Yeah.
So you can then just see the file. So I can go into a folder, see that document, and I can download it. But like you said, Jason, you do have to be online. What happens if you download a file? I think I did see this. If you download a file and then you go offline, it's not there though, is it then? It's not available because the app can't see OneDrive.
Yeah, so even if you open up the file, you're still kind of connecting and opening that file from OneDrive. It's not then making a local copy of it. So yeah, as you say, if you go offline, then you won't be able to see it. It's difficult for me because I'm lucky. I've got the Surface Pro 3 with a 512 gigabyte SSD, so I've literally got all of my documents, everything I need, synchronizing directly to the laptop, to the Surface, so it's there when I need it. So I haven't really been affected, but I can certainly understand, if you've got a Lynx 8 tablet which has got very minimum space, then you're not going to have that luxury. So having a quick way to browse things, because like for me, so I'm on a slow internet connection, browsing online files is quite a slow process for me, whereas with placeholders, it was an instant. Yes, you need to wait for the file to download if you actually wanted to open it, but it was an instant way of browsing that library, whereas without them, this OneDrive app would still be slow to load and refresh each folder. But like I said, I've been lucky enough that it hasn't directly impacted me as much as I thought it would.
Yeah, Gary, how have you managed with it?
Not syncing anything on the small tablets. I mean, basically, it becomes a useless product for me in that situation. A way I've actually got around it is I have a folder which I specifically sync with the smaller devices.
Exactly what I've done.
But that's not really the way it was useful before.
Yeah, I exactly have that. I've got a few documents which I know, and I know I'm going to need on or want to access on the little tablet. So I have 2 document folders, one for big PCs, one for little PCs.
Yeah, having said that though, I don't miss the fact I don't sync it on my phone. I guess the using the app on the phone does work for me.
Yeah, and I actually, I've been using the app today, and I mean it's okay. It's a good app, but it's just the online offline issue, isn't it? So if there is a file that you want to access occasionally, you've got to make sure it's in your little folder, PC desktop folder, or whatever you call it. You know, you've got to. You can't have that just, oh, I might need that, so I'll use the online offline. So if you're going to use it offline at all, you have to make sure you've downloaded it. I must admit, most of the time I'm online, so it's not really a problem. Maybe that's the issue, that connectivity for people designing the product is better than other people or other regions. So maybe their connectivity, the offline issues are less important, and probably got bigger devices. I don't know.
Yeah. And as Richard points out in the chat room, the competition is now actually thinking about you into placeholders. I mean, Dropbox have mentioned the fact that they might get placeholders in the near future.
Yeah, and before I used OneDrive, I was a Dropbox user. In fact, still use Dropbox for certain applications. And one of the reasons why I mainly use OneDrive was because of placeholders in Windows 8.1.
Yeah.
So yes, it'd be interesting to see if Dropbox managed to do placeholders, then how that can then, whether Microsoft will ever bring placeholders back, or whether this is it. Don't know.
I know. Yeah, I mean, I know they're doing a lot of work. They've obviously integrated there was OneDrive for Business, which is now integrated as a single. The consumer and business app is one thing now, and you basically add a business account. But I've still got separate OneDrive for Business to download and synchronize my SharePoint sites. And I know they're looking to integrate that in there. And you can certainly understand from a corporate perspective where you might want placeholders to make it easy for people to kind of locate and work files as if they're local copies, but actually, stored upon their OneDrive or their SharePoint collection.
Yeah, and again, as Richard pointed out in the chat room, that's what Project Infinite was supposed to be all about, which is basically placeholders on OneDrive for Business, which they did announce at OneDrive event. I think it was in London. They had that event, but so they showed a preview of it. I guess they didn't actually announce it. They showed a preview of it and said this might be coming. But that actually the preview looked very much like this app, but obviously had more to it than this app does.
The other thing I will say, and I totally understand Richard's points, and he's absolutely right. It's not a replacement, just because of the workflows that it enables by having the placeholders. But I will say that the Office suite, Office 2016, which is obviously, if you've got an Office 365 subscription, is updated every month with fixes and new features. And the actual integration with OneDrive and OneDrive for Business, as it was, works so well. Like I say, you're still relying on being online. So if you've got a slow connection, it's still going to be painful. But it really kind of hides that you're actually looking at a cloud-based collection quite well, even to the point that the modern apps will now, you create a file and it will instantly save it, and just as document by default. But then you can literally just click into the header of the app and actually rename it there and then. Because I initially started looking for a rename option, but it's not there. You literally just click the name of the file, which is document, and then just name it to what you want, and it automatically renames it, automatically saves it into your cloud collection. So yeah, I think Office definitely kind of blurs those lines between online and offline files.
Yeah, I think Richard says check out the video, and I'll include a link to what Richard's talking about from the chat room, which is the Dropbox solution. I think for people that placeholders is really important, maybe Dropbox solution is a good one, and Microsoft are all about embracing third parties now, and then they include links to Dropbox in this.
Yeah.
So maybe that's what their answer will be. If you want a premium solution, go with Dropbox. If you're happy with the standard solution, OneDrive's your way forward.
Yeah, I say that Dropbox. Sorry, dropped off there. I'm back. The Dropbox app looks almost identical to this app in many ways, but it's got placeholders.
I mean, one thing Microsoft seem to have done recently is they've got the UWP apps like Groove and maybe the Skype app started off with some basic feature sets and gradually improved them over time, and maybe we'll have some kind of offline, online, maybe not back to placeholders, but some offline, online features in the UWP app.
Yeah.
You never know.
You never know.
No, I think Richard's pretty much keen on placeholders. I think guess from the chat room.
Well, I can see why. I mean,
Yeah.
there is definitely use cases for placeholders, and if you got them, they were very powerful.
Yeah.
I know they did get an awful lot of support calls from people getting on planes and saying, "Where's all these films I had in my Dropbox? I can't play them because I hadn't thought to download them." But I just put that down to stupid people.
Yes. One final update as well I want to talk about is talking of UWP apps, the Microsoft Health app, which is currently phone only, that's making its way to Windows as a universal app, Windows 10.
So because I just kind of assumed it was automatically, it was already available.
No. So currently, the Microsoft Health app, which is the app that you use for communicating with the band, setting the band up, does the sort of the uploading to the cloud of all the band data, and you can use it for viewing historical things or historical data. That is phone only.
All right.
It's Windows. It was a Windows Phone 8.1 and Windows 10 mobile only. Mm-hmm. So if you didn't have, I should say iOS and Android are supported as well. So for the desktop, there was a kind of desktop syncing app, but it was a traditional. I think it was a click once .NET application that did the syncing, but that's all it did, and it would update the firmware. So launching later this week will be the UWP app. So you'll be able to install the app on your PC, and if you plug the phone in via the cable, you can sync it up, and you can manage the band, you can adjust all the colors, everything you do on the phone, you can do on the PC. But also, even if you don't sync up directly between the band and the PC, you can still sync up with your phone as you do normally, but you can go into the app on your PC and look at your steps taken today and your historical ones. So it's a much better, it's an extra option. Previously, the only way was to look at the web-based version, so I think that makes sense. But one interesting feature that they're adding to the Band 2 itself is a hiking option. And I did quite a bit of walking, and I use the running app sometimes to measure that, and it does the job well, but it does take a lot of battery because it's doing a real-time GPS. So that drains the battery quite well, and there's not really any optimization for anybody doing any walking, fell walking, or hiking, or anything like that. So the new Explore tile that's in the app is for the Band. It has the GPS in, but they're using the GPS power saver. So if you're doing a long walk, that's where it sort of does intermittent checks of the GPS rather than real time, so the battery lasts much longer than Microsoft say 12 hours. But it also has sort of optimized notifications telling you when to hydrate. It tells you when the sun's set. I think it will alert you to inclement weather using the barometer, and it displays your route data and all the things you want if you're walking. So a nice little update for the Band.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So I think I'm going to find that quite useful. It might be useful to when I go to Le Mans in June to see how far around the track I actually get. Because you can't use the running one because the battery will be dead within 3 hours, and it's a 24-hour race. So Richard asks, final sort of topic. Richard asks in the chat room, do you think there's going to be a Band 3?
I would suspect so, given that I think it's quite an important or potentially important market for Microsoft, and it's quite a big business, isn't it? I think these fitness trackers, and I question whether or not a true smartwatch would really appeal. Having a watch you have to recharge all the time, and isn't as attractive as a traditional timepiece. I think maybe a Band is a kind of a better compromise. But what do you think, Gary?
Yeah, it depends how committed Microsoft is to its own hardware still. But I think the Band's a good thing for them to have. It certainly allowed them to get people using Microsoft equipment who probably wouldn't have used it before. Because I know quite a few people using the Band with Android phones.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. I think that's been quite important. So yeah, I think you're right, Gary. I think we potentially will see a Band 3, and whether we'll see it running Windows 10 out is, as you're saying, Jason. I'm not sure. It really matters. I think just having the device that links up with iOS and Android is important enough.
Yeah, I don't know. I think in some ways having using Windows 10 IoT would be quite important in terms of, a demonstrating. One thing that Microsoft does when it builds hardware is it's kind of demonstrating their platforms, what they're capable of.
Yeah.
And I think a band running Windows 10 IoT would be a good kind of flagship device showing what that operating system is capable of.
Yeah, maybe we'll see that, and I think what we took it October time was the Band 2, so maybe we'll see a Band.
It usually launches just about the same time as the MVP Summit. And
Yeah, it does. Yeah,
usually late October, early November. So.
yeah.
Although there are talks, isn't there, that a lot of these devices won't. The next hardware refresh isn't due until Redstone 2, which is now potentially next year, but we'll see.
Oh, there was one thing, one final thing I just mentioned as well, is a question for next week's show. It's for us. How many more builds will we get before the anniversary edition ships? So have a think about that, and in the chat room can think about that as well. So we'll maybe have a sweepstake on who will get the closest number of builds.
Yes. Oh, I'll tell you one thing, actually, just rewinding back to earlier. One thing I didn't anticipate, and I should have done, was when I upgraded my Lumia 930, I had to say goodbye to an old friend.
Oh, yes.
My hair drive apps didn't come across with the upgrade. I'm guessing because they're now no longer compatible. So I now face life without Nokia or without a hair drive.
The new Maps app is actually pretty good.
It is, yeah.
It's the one that's on the release preview.
Yeah. To be honest, the biggest thing I'm going to miss is the My Commute feature, because I just always had that on every day traveling to work. So that's going to be you're right. I mean, I've got Copilot as well. So in terms of actual kind of core navigation, it's not something I'll miss. But yeah, I will miss having that with my daily commute.
Yeah. So an old friend that's been with one of the things you used to say to me, you should have got a Nokia. That's because of the mapping app.
Yes. Yeah.
Remember them days well.
They would have helped you find the celebrations in Leicester yesterday.
Yes, congratulations to your team, James.
Yeah,
I tell you one really good thing about that. All my American friends now how to pronounce Leicester.
Oh, Leicestershire. Leicestershire.
Leicester.
Leicester, yeah. That's it, yeah.
Yes.
Well,
Premierships will never happen again in my lifetime, I'm sure.
Yeah, this is the next season. We're back to not mention it again.
Yes. Yeah, I did have a moment of hilarity last night. I was taking my 11-year-old upstairs to bed, and he was chatting, and my kids have always taken the mickey out of me about supporting Leicester City. And he went to make a joke about how bad Leicester were, and he went, "Oh, I can't say that anymore, can I?" So,
yeah, revenge is sweet.
Yeah. Enjoy it while it lasts.
Yes,
that's the thing, isn't it? When your team wins, enjoy it.
Yeah. So well, I'll be trying to claim Leicester City as my new Xbox gamer tag tomorrow. See if that's one of the released ones.
Yeah, you can do that. Maybe Redstone, as I think Richard said. So
yeah.
Well, thanks very much for joining us this week. That was a packed show, and thanks to the chat room as well. It was good to have people in the chat room as well. I think Richard was in there and Jonathan Hill. So I also want to leave that. Yeah. So that's it for this week. We'll be back next week.
A bill before next week's show, Ian, you reckon?
I think we'll get a PC bill before next week's show.
I've got one question before I go. How have I been sounding tonight?
Very clear, with a bit of digital noise every now and again, but clear.
Yeah, so the digital noise is probably because I'm on Bluetooth. I've actually been using a Sennheiser Presence professional Bluetooth head earpiece. And I know this is something that Josh Pollard always talks about, quality Bluetooth earpieces. And I have to say, this is exceptional. It's designed for use with Skype for Business, and I've been really impressed with it.
Well, you can have a listen back to the audio and see what you think.
Yeah, especially since I'm actually in quite a noisy environment tonight where I base myself before going down to the presentation I'm doing on Thursday. So yes, I've been really impressed with it.
Oh, and good luck with the presentation. I'm out of the office tomorrow, but I should be in on Thursday, so I might catch that.
So I'm on the 2:30 slot, well 2:15 slot I think it is, and I'll probably be on the show next week to explain how badly a fool I made of myself trying to write an app from scratch in about 20 minutes for the event, live on the show on the event.
We'll look out for that.
Yeah. I mean, actually, Gary, you can give us an update next week on all your apps.
Yeah, tell us all your apps you've done. So, Gary, where can we find you?
You can find me at Gary WMA on Twitter. That's Gary with 2 R's, and also at fascinatingtech.com.
Excellent. And Jason, where can we find you?
You can find me at Database Chase on Twitter. Excellent.
So we'll be back next week, hopefully with a new build to talk about, and we'll try and guess how many builds we're going to have before release. Until then, see you next week.
Yeah, take care.
See you next week. Bye-bye.